All right. Good morning, Raider fans, and welcome to our podcast here today. And we are having an update for all of you on the NFL signings from the past week. And Tuesday, one of the most historic free agent signing days in the NFL.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
And let's talk about some of these signings.
A lot happened.
A lot.
Yeah.
All right.
Let Sam read some of those off.
So some of the biggest free agency signings so far, probably one of the most notable ones was LaShawn McCoy to the Buffalo Bills. That was huge because he's been a major factor for the Eagles. He went to Buffalo in exchange for Kiko Alonso, one of the top linebackers. So that was a huge trade. Then you got the Baltimore Ravens trading Haloti Ngata to the Detroit Lions, along with a 7th-round pick for a 4th and a 5th-round pick. So that kind of helps Detroit make up for that loss with Ndamukong Suh. Cincinnati, the Bengals, they signed linebacker A.J. Hawk from the Packers. He's been pretty productive for them lately, so that'll be a pretty key signing. Brett, how about you talk about some more?
All right. Cleveland signed one of the top receivers on the Dolphins, Brian Hartline, and they have lined up a meeting with Parrish Cox. Denver has just signed tight end Owen Daniels and have lined up a meeting with Virgil Green. Actually, no, they just signed him. And Houston has lined up a visit with Brian Hoyer, and they traded Case Keenum to St. Louis, which is kind of a surprise considering how good Case Keenum was at the end of the season. But now St. Louis has a quarterback, which is good because they never had any.
Mm-hmm.
Indianapolis signed Frank Gore, and Sam, you could speak about that because you're a Niners fan.
Yep, that sucks to see him go, but love to watch him leave. He's old.
They also signed defensive players Kendall Langford, Trent Cole, Cole Anderson, Joe Reitz, and Mike Adams. And they have lined up a visit with the former Houston Texan, Andre Johnson.
Yeah, that's pretty big. You got Frank Gore, notably played for the University of Miami. Andre Johnson also played for the University of Miami. So it looks like Indy's got a big University of Miami thing going. So we'll see if they can sign Andre, because that'd be huge.
That would be huge for them because they got some decent receivers out there, and T.Y. Hilton. So
Yeah,
I think
T.Y.
that that'd be
Yeah.
great to work with Andre Johnson if he can stay healthy for a change. The Jaguars were pretty busy too, and they're never really busy at all. So let's talk about Jacksonville signing defensive players Devon House, Dan Skuta, and Jeremy Parnell. And they yesterday just officially claimed Julius Thomas and Sergio Brown from the Colts.
Yeah, the Jaguars, they had the
Broncos.
most money coming into this free agency with almost $60 million. So they got a lot of money to spend. It'll be interesting to see if all these free agency signings will help turn their luck around, because obviously in recent years they've been one of the worst teams in the NFL. So hopefully some of these big signings. Julius Thomas, obviously one of the biggest tight ends in the NFL, so we'll see if he can help turn that passing game around.
The comments that were surfacing social media when Julius Thomas signed with the Jaguars was, "There goes his career."
Yeah,
So
that's pretty accurate. Yeah. I mean, Blake Bortles is he's pretty solid.
yeah, I don't mind Blake Bortles at all. I think he's actually got a lot of potential, so he'll probably work well with Julius Thomas. The Chiefs signing defensive back Tyvon Branch, and they re-signed Mike DeVito, and they are expected to sign. Actually, no, this was official as of yesterday. Reuniting with his former coach, Andy Reid, Jeremy Maclin is going to the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, seems like Philadelphia is just getting rid of all their good players. I don't know what Chip Kelly's doing over there, but I think I'm assuming he has some idea of what he's doing.
Yeah, I'm not sure why teams that seem like they're going to make a good run in the postseason every year, they decide to unload their best players. It makes no sense at all. Actually.
Yeah, but
I don't understand it either.
maybe they can actually get a wide receiver touchdown this year, because they had 0 last year.
Exactly.
Maclin had 10 by himself.
Wow.
That's really sad. And the Dolphins offered the biggest contract I have ever seen to a defensive end, to Ndamukong Suh, who could not turn it down, with being paid $114 million with $60 million guaranteed,
Yeah, it's just
which
insane.
is pretty crazy.
That's
So
an
he couldn't
absurd
turn that
amount of
down.
money.
So Miami welcomes Ndamukong Suh, who is now one of the highest paid players in the entire NFL.
Yeah, well, the Dolphins got to compete. Everyone in that division, everyone in the AFC is trying to compete with the Patriots, so a lot of key signings coming out of the AFC East. Ndamukong Suh, probably one of the biggest ones.
I was
Yeah,
hoping
there's
my
no way
Giants-
he's not taking that trade. You're leaving cold Detroit for nice Miami.
Yeah,
so,
nice sunny Miami
Exactly.
and all that money.
with a cold, hard pocket of cash,
I was
under
hoping-
14 mil.
I was hoping my Giants would get him, but they didn't want to give him that
good luck
money.
with that.
Exactly. And they Dolphins also re-signed Kelvin Shepard, one of their key defensive players. The Patriots, on the other hand, who are next on this list, have a very interesting one. They cut Darrelle Revis and Brandon Browner. Darrelle Revis returns to the Jets after being cut from the Patriots. First of all, why do you cut Darrelle Revis? You just won a Super Bowl with him.
Yeah, I mean, Revis obviously going for money with the Jets. Patriots didn't want to pay him all that cash. He won him a ring, but he's obviously over his career. He's probably maximized his contracts better than anyone in the history of the NFL.
Such a good negotiator. I'll tell you that. He's a great negotiator.
He soaks up all the money he can get. I think over the course of if he finished out this contract, he'll have made over $144 million. So that's insane.
That is pretty good. And also they signed wide receiver Brandon Gibson from the Miami Dolphins, and they are talking to C.J. Spiller and Reggie Bush, which would be pretty good for New England, considering that they don't really like to have big-name running backs.
Yeah, exactly.
They're old. I don't know if they're going to be.
Reggie Bush is better than C.J. Spiller. Reggie Bush is still solid. I mean, he's not what he used to be, but he's still pretty good.
And with Shane Vereen going to the Giants and Stephen Ridley also a free agent, the Patriots will be looking for a running back.
Yeah, and the Jets, like we said, got Darrelle Revis. They also signed Buster Skrine, and they re-signed their running back Bilal Powell, who doesn't do much. But they did cut Percy Harvin, and they are talking to Antonio Cromartie about returning to the Jets.
Yeah, that'd be big if they can get Cromartie and Revis back there at the same time.
Back together.
Yeah, Percy Harvin's now been released from 3 teams in a row, but he'll find a home. And then Buster Skrine, also a very solid cornerback from Cleveland. So
yeah,
it looks like they're going back to that secondary that they had when they returned to 2 straight AFC championships. So we'll see if they can make a run at it this year.
I mean, we all know why Percy Harvin was always cut, though, because they say he's a really big handful in the locker room. He's causes a lot of trouble team-wise.
Very injury prone.
Also very injury prone. So bad attitude, always injured. Why do you want him on your team?
I mean, it's
But
just
one of
when you're like a solid player as much as he is.
Yeah, one of the most explosive players in the NFL, just hampered by injuries.
Can't keep his act together either. And the Oakland Raiders, let's talk about this actually. Roy Halou, very old running back from the Washington Redskins, but probably
not very productive. But,
solid receiving running back, though. Good guy to throw to out of the backfield.
Mm-hmm.
Malcolm Smith, the former Super Bowl MVP, signs with Oakland, which is a pretty good signing considering that Oakland's been signing a lot of big defensive guys as of late.
Mm-hmm.
They also are interested in signing tight end Jermaine Gresham and also Dan Williams and lineman Curtis Lofton. And the Pittsburgh Steelers have lost Jason Worlds, who just announced his retirement. They signed Matt Spaeth, and they cut Brett Kiesel after many years with him.
Yeah.
Also probably one of the ugliest players in all the NFL with that giant beard of his.
Disappointing.
That's pretty mean. I'm pretty sure he'd be very.
I'm sorry,
offended by
but
what
he's
you just
very,
said.
very good, and I don't understand why they cut him. I mean, he's old, but still.
Even as a Steelers fan, I'm really disappointed by this.
Brett Kiesel has feelings too, Brett.
Yeah, I'm sorry. All right, and the San Diego Chargers cut Chad Reinhardt. Don't know who that is. And the Tennessee Titans just lost their quarterback, Jake Locker, as he announced his retirement after only 4 years in the league. Might be a smart decision on his part, considering that he's always hurt every year. He's never really played a full NFL season.
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty sad to hear. You've been a lot of retirements the last couple of days. But such a young guy stepping away from football. He was such an amazing college athlete at the University of Washington. It's really sad to see him step away from the game. It just seemed like his mind wasn't really into football as much as a lot of other people. So
we're watching this paper carefully here.
yeah, so I mean, I guess he's doing what's best for him. He's made a lot more money than anyone else would make in their lifetime in just a few many years, but I would guess
It's
I
actually
guess he kind of
interesting.
figured it out.
It's interesting to see what they do after their career's over, especially at such a young age. I mean, usually players retire after they're done
26
playing.
years
He's
old.
still got another 50, 60 years of life left,
Yeah.
assuming
Assuming everything goes well.
assuming no
God
unforeseen.
forbid.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but
And
I
smart
mean-
with your money, Jay Walker.
I
You're
mean-
very
he'll
smart.
probably be bankrupt. And,
Don't go there. He's not Scottie Pippen.
Oh.
He's very smart with his money, but still, it's really a shame to see such a young guy because he was such a good college player, and he comes and he just can't stay healthy. I mean, he's not the first guy to have this happen to him. Sidney Rice recently retired last year at age 29, and he was always hurt, and he was a very good college wide receiver. So it's not the first time this has happened. but sadly it does, and this is what makes the NFL world go around.
Yeah, it's the game of football.
Exactly. They also have visited with former Chiefs tight end Anthony Fasano, and they are probably going to sign Denoris Searcy, who's a solid defensive player. Arizona just signed Mike Upati, Lamar Woodley, and they are visiting with Corey Redding, and they have also talked to Brian Arakpo. Now, how cool would that be to have Brian Arakpo in Arizona?
Yeah, I mean, Arizona, obviously one of those teams in the NFC West looking to compete with Seattle, as almost everyone is. So they're making a bunch of key free agency signings. I know they're also thinking about possibly signing Adrian Peterson. I don't know how far that'll go, but if they can get him, they're definitely going to give Seattle a run for their money this year.
Yeah.
That would be a huge pickup.
That would be a very big pickup. But who knows if Pearson's going to be the same after missing so much football this past year with the suspension and then the year before with the reconstructive knee surgery. He did come back from that, but now he might be a little rusty considering that he missed almost half a season this year.
He came back from a torn ACL to rush for over 2,000 yards, so I think he's pretty capable of putting up a solid year next year if he's on the right team.
He's been consistent year round, so I don't for all these years. I don't see why he shouldn't be now.
The guy's a bull. He's gonna be fine.
Yeah. And the Atlanta Falcons signed Antone Smith, Mike Pearson, T.J. Yates. When was the last time we heard his name? Back when he was a starter for the Texans in the playoffs.
Yeah, useless.
Backup quarterback to Matt Ryan for that one. Brooks Reed was also signed, Justin Durant, and they are visiting Derek Morgan, and they are probably going to sign Lance Kendricks, who's a solid wide receiver.
Solid.
And the Carolina Panthers have probably made one of their biggest signings so far. They signed Michael Orr for an offensive lineman. Michael Orr he's aging, but he's still a very solid lineman. Big, strong guy.
The Blind Side, very good movie. Sandra Bullock. A story about Michael Orr's childhood and how he made it to the NFL. So, obviously a household name in the NFL, but also a very solid player, not only a celebrity.
Good signing. And they re-signed Ed Dixon, the former Ravens tight end. Dwan Edwards, Joe Webb, Fozzie Whitaker, Brendan Burson. They cut D'Angelo Williams, which was expected, as he's not what he used to be.
Fozzie Whitaker, one of the best names in the NFL.
Exactly.
Definitely.
Wait, what's that? What's better than that, though? Is Clinton Dix better than that?
Clinton Dix is a very, very nice name.
It's a great name.
DeBrickashaw Ferguson.
Leotis McKelvin.
Solid.
Exactly. We can go with names all day in the NFL. They have also lined up a meeting with Jarrett Boykin. The Bears have visited with Eddie Royal, and they're expected to sign Antrell Roll. Now, that really surprises me that they're expected to sign Antrell Roll, considering that the Giants were saying that they were going to try to negotiate the best they can with him because he loves being a Giant.
Yeah.
But if they're expected to sign him, that's a big loss for the Giants. It's a big blow as he can play safety and defensive back.
Mm-hmm.
So
that'd be big for the Bears.
Yeah, that's a big signing for the Bears. I mean, he's old, but he's also a fantastic leader. So they got him. Dallas is still negotiating with DeMarco Murray. They have been for a while. They've talked to Antonio Cromartie, but they are probably not going to get him. And Sam, you mentioned Detroit's trade earlier in the podcast. Green Bay just reached a deal with their stud lineman Brian Balaga, and they re-signed their stud wide receiver Randall Cobb, which is also really good to have Randall Cobb on your team. If you don't keep him, then you have problems.
Mm-hmm.
Minnesota has met with Adrian Peterson. They signed backup quarterback Sean Hill. They re-signed Joe Berger and Matt Asiata as a running back. New Orleans traded Jimmy Graham. This was one of the biggest surprises I saw. They traded Jimmy Graham and a fourth-round pick to the Seahawks for Max Unger and a first-round draft pick, and they are showing interest in the former Patriot defensive back Brandon Browner. And Jimmy Graham, why do you trade Jimmy?
Yeah, I mean this was probably the biggest thing that happened yesterday. Jimmy Graham, probably the second best tight end in the league after Rob Gronkowski. Drew Brees' favorite weapon by far, and really the only thing Seattle needed was a tight end, and they got one of the best ones in the NFL. So, I mean, just imagine if you had Jimmy Graham during this past Super Bowl, you got an easy touchdown from the 1 yard line. You don't even need to think about it.
You don't even need to think about Malcolm Butler.
Yeah.
The Giants were pretty busy yesterday as well. They signed the Cowboys kick and punt returner and third wide receiver Dwayne Harris, who's a very fast runner, so he's a very good returner, so that was a good signing. They also signed Jonathan Casillas, and they also signed Shane Vereen. Shane Vereen is a very good pickup for the Giants, considering that they need a guy out of the backfield who can catch the ball when he's thrown to on a screen pass because
Yeah.
Rashad Jennings is not really that type of guy. He's more of a downhill runner. They also signed J.T. Thomas from the Jaguars and Marshall Newhouse for an offensive lineman. Marshall Newhouse, a good signing as the Giants need all the offensive linemen they could get considering how beat up Eli Manning was this past year.
Yeah, that should help.
Exactly. The Eagles traded Nick Foles and draft picks to the St. Louis Rams for Sam Bradford. Now that's mind-boggling to me.
This is probably one of the dumbest things I've ever seen.
Oh, Sam.
I don't know what the hell Chip Kelly is doing over there, but I hope he knows what he's doing because Sam Bradford has been notoriously awful. He's been hurt. I don't know what kind of system he fits in other than the hospital system because that seems to be where he spends all his time. Nick Foles was solid when he was healthy for the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm about to be crushed by this poster. But I mean, you just hope that it works out because I mean everyone's mind is blown by this trade.
Eagles fans, they don't seem happy by this at all. Actually,
Yeah, the Eagles are just getting rid of all their good players and bringing in bad players. So
I mean,
hey,
Bradford-
maybe it's a new trend. Maybe
Yeah,
something might happen.
Maybe-
doesn't seem like a winning formula to me, but who knows?
Well, here's the
Who
thing, though.
knows?
You do have Mark Sanchez, who is actually
Pretty
until
awful,
The,
yeah.
well, until
Yeah.
until the end of the season, was playing well.
Until it mattered, yeah.
Until it mattered,
until it
he was
mattered,
playing
yeah.
very well. And rumor has it they're actually, according to this list, they're going to trade. They're going to try to trade for the 6th pick in the NFL draft to get Chip Kelly's former quarterback Marcus Mariota.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone's gonna want Sam Bradford though. That's the only problem.
Well,
Because-
Bradford would be a backup if they got Mariota,
Well,
and then you would release Sanchez.
yeah, but you'd be giving up a lot more draft picks. I mean, if you had kept Nick Foles, you probably could have traded Foles and a lot less than. I mean, if you get rid of him, but whatever. I'm no general manager, so
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
what do we
I'll
know?
let them handle it.
The Rams have cut Howie Long's son, Jake
Oh
Long.
no, Howie Long.
They cut his son Jake from their team, and they also cut Scott Wells. Now, Sam, your Niners, Patrick Willis announced his retirement. They signed Torrey Smith, solid wide receiver from the Baltimore Ravens. And the 49ers don't really have any big-name receivers, so that's always good to have Torrey Smith in there, especially how dynamic he is. And they've lined up a visit with Reggie Bush. I don't know if I could see Reggie Bush going to San Fran, though.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we need. I don't think that the loss of Frank Gore, we're gonna have to bounce back from that. I think Carlos Hyde is gonna be solid, but I don't think he's ready. So Reggie Bush would be a helpful fill-in. But I don't know what's happening to this team after Jim Harbaugh left. It's just gone downhill in a hurry. Patrick Willis, 7-time Pro Bowl in 8 seasons, just a phenomenal athlete. He retired at age 30. He still had at least 4 or 5 more solid years left. He went to go help kids, whatever. He can do himself. Frank Gore, going to the Colts, very sad. Torrey Smith and Anquan Bolden can now reunite ex-Ravens players. Justin Smith, defensive tackle, one of the best players on that vaunted 49ers front seven. He's probably going to retire too, so it's getting real ugly for the 49ers because everyone is either retiring, getting arrested, or being traded. So
Looks like the 49ers are going to end up just like they did when they were under Mike Singletary.
yeah, not looking good. But,
Exactly.
Hey, hopefully Jim Tomsula can turn things around.
Exactly.
Hopefully.
Hold your breath, Niners fans. You may still have hope. Seattle, according to they also signed Kerry Williams, and they've lined up a visit with Shelley Smith, and they re-signed one of their defensive players in Mike Morgan. The Seahawks are probably the biggest winners when it comes to this free agency week because they got Jimmy Graham.
Mm-hmm.
The Bucks, or the Buccaneers, I should say, lined up a visit with Henry Melton and Bruce Carter. They cut Anthony Collins, and last but not least, actually I should say least because they were awful this year, the Redskins lined up a visit with Terrence Knighton and Parrish Cox. They have agreed to terms with Stephen Paya. Who's Stephen Paya? Exactly.
Good for them. I don't know, but Parrish Cox, one of the best corners in the league, so if they can get him, that would help. But yeah, crazy day in free agency all around the NFL. So we'll see. We'll see what else happens.
All right, now before we wrap up the show, I want to hear your guys' opinions. Who was the biggest winner in free agency?
Seattle.
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 They got the one position they needed. They were already a Super Bowl contender without him, and they just got one of the top 10 players in the entire league. So
All around Seattle.
Yep, good for them.
All right.
I hate them.
All right, that wraps it up for our NFL free agency signing update. We will keep you updated with more podcasts. I'm Brett Mayerson,
I'm Sam Mahler.
I'm Clark Harrington.
and we will see you on our next podcast. Go Raiders.
Peace.